overview of Oracle receivable process. As we understood in the order to cash lifecycle, basically receivables process starts when the process in order management ends. So that's the cycle that we discussed. So as you could see, the whole of order management starts with order processing, booking, picking, and shipping, and finally the invoice gets interface to receivables. Now that's the case when you have implemented the entire order to cash cycle. In other words, when you have implemented order management module, in such a case this life cycle holds good. But in case you have not implemented order management and you have simply implemented receivables as a standalone module, in that case you will see the life cycle or the process flow in receivables which is similar to this one. The only difference out here is that you don't have the process flow for order management at all, and the process basically starts in receivables. As such, this is the process flow which happens as far as account receivables module is concerned. So let's start with this process flow. So as you would see from the last cycle, that after an auto invoice interface program is run, it will basically create invoices into receivables. Fine. And that invoices are not just created, basically they are imported into receivables. And that's the reason the first step that you would see over here is either manually create an invoice or import an invoice. So one of the sources for importing the invoice is order management if you have implemented order to cash lifecycle process flow in Oracle eBusiness Suite. Okay, so that's one of the sources. Other sources could include invoices coming from other sources such as projects, could be one source, or if you have implemented service contracts, that could be another source. You can get receivables invoices from there, or you can also get invoices from external systems. External systems means that, for example, you are maintaining Oracle eBusiness Suite as your main system, but you've got other child or systems or internally developed application, or maybe some other external facing application from other vendor. So that you basically use for generating the invoice, but you want to consolidate the data at one place, which is nothing but Oracle eBusiness Suite database. So what you do, you basically bring those invoices from external system, process them into receivables, and make the payment from receivables. So in order to bring those invoices from those external systems, you can potentially use what you call as receivables invoice interface program, wherein you can import those invoices from your external sources or other internal applications. All right, and finally, the last way of creating the invoice is of course manual. You can simply go to receivables form and start creating the invoice. I think it's a good idea at this point of time that we go into Oracle applications and I quickly run you through the functionality or the forms that where you go about creating and processing each of these individual process flow steps. So let's go to Oracle applications. So what I've done over here, I've basically opened the browser and I've launched the URL for opening Oracle applications. Now I can use a generic user called operations, which comes with a Vision demonstration database as a part of Oracle Release 12i eBusiness Suite installation. Okay, so simply use the user operations and password welcome, hit the login button. Okay, on the left side you got to scroll down to a responsibility called as receivables super user Vision operations USA. So it should be a little bit down. Receivables Vision operations USA, that's the responsibility. So simply click on there. And in order to go to transaction screen, simply go to transactions and transactions. So you will essentially reach the form for entering the transactions, or in other words, transactions such as invoices, credit memos, debit memos, deposits, or prepayments. There you go. So that's the place you basically enter your transactions. So we'll go back to presentation now. And hold on. Alright, so that's where you basically go and enter your invoices manually, but in case you have imported it from external sources, then you can see that invoice right here on this form. Okay, and now this is the invoice header, so you enter your like invoice source. What's my invoice source? It could be manual, or if you have imported it from external systems, and the source will get defaulted automatically. And that could be for example, you can define any XYZ source name, or if it's auto management is the source, then you will have order entry as the source name. And likewise, you've got to select the class out here. So what kind of an invoice it is, whether it's an invoice or it's any other type of a transaction it is, then you've got to choose from this transaction. All right, then you basically go and enter rest of the data. For example, you enter the customer billing and shipping details. You go to, then once you enter all this, then this button, which is disabled now, line items, will get enabled, and you can go to line items and enter the lines for this invoices. Okay, so subject to the condition that you have basically entered your lines, you can also enter the freight or tax amounts in the lines. And once you're done with all that, you basically save your transaction. So once you save this, if you have a setup to automatically create the accounting, then the accounting distributions will be created automatically. You can always change them by going to distributions and update it. Likewise, you can enter sales credit for your salespeople online using the form over here. So once you have entered all this information, then you simply go review and correct the data, and subject to the condition that everything is correct, you simply complete the transaction. So you will find that this button, which is currently incomplete, will be shown as complete over here, and when you click on that, this button will kind of complete the transaction, or in the system it will say that okay, I've reviewed and corrected the data, now the transaction is complete to be sent to the customer. So at that point of time, the next step will come into picture, wherein you print the invoices and you send those invoices to your customers. And you can actually leverage standard features and functions of Oracle applications. There are a couple of reports using which you can print the invoices, and not only that, you can email those invoices. A little bit of a configuration will be required. So as we go along the module, I'm going to go into each of these process flow, and we will actually go into much detail to not only understand the process flow, but we'll actually do a hands-on exercise of entering the data, plus the setup related to those transactions will also be done as a part of account receivables implementation. Okay, so once you have sent the invoices to the customer, so assuming that the customers have received those invoices, the next step is to collect the payments from the invoice from the customers, right? So at that point of time, the customers comes into picture. Now before I go into that, the collections process, let me just tell you one thing. If you go back, so this place, what you see over here, this form is also called as transaction workbench. Okay, essentially receivables have got 3 or 4 workbenches, which are which kind of constitute everything in receivables, whereas the setup goes in the background, but those workbenches, you can see the entire transactional flow. So one was transactional workbench. The second one, as we are going to collections, so there is a collections workbench which is over here. So if you go to collections, and then these are the things which constitute collections workbench. Basically you can start with collections process. So in which case you enter the collector's details, and he will see the entire customer invoices pending for his attention or which have been processed, listed over here. So you can basically configure the entire collection workbench, and based on that, when you enter the data, the rest of the data will get defaulted. So we will see the functionality of this form going down the line. So just hold on for a moment. So that's the collection workbench, which helps to follow up with the customers to collect the payments against the invoices. All right, so that's where internal collectors comes into picture. Now once the collection process is complete, in other words, once you receive the payments, the customer can make the payment using checks, right, or various other means. So in that case, what happens is you involve your banks. For example, if the customer has paid you through check, then what you do, you hand over that check to the bank, or as an alternate, the customer can directly send that check to the bank, and bank will do what? Your bank. Okay, so your bank will basically clear that check. In other words, your bank will go to customer's bank, get the funds from customer bank, and bring it to your organization's account. And basically, once that fund transfer happens from customer bank to your bank, basically the payment has been cleared. So at that point of time, the account balance will get updated in your bank, but it has been updated only in your bank, but it hasn't been updated at the customer level in Oracle. So so in order to do that, what you do, there is something called as this program, what you see out here, bank reconciliation program, comes into picture. So all the transactions that the bank has cleared, they will detail that out in a statement. Okay, they will kind of generate a statement in it, like a text file or a comma separated values or a CSV format file, and that file is actually sent to the organization. In this case, let's say this organization, who is selling organization. So what they do, they take that bank statement file and suck it into the system through a interface program, which is a part of cash management module. Is called as bank reconciliation interface. So they suck that bank statements from bank reconciliation interface program into cash management, and then as a part of that program, you can automatically match those transactions which are there in the bank statement to the receipts. Okay. At the same time, Oracle has also given an option that if you don't want to automatically match and reconcile, then one can manually go and map those transactional line from bank statement and reconcile them with the receipts. So once you reconcile, means that the money which is received by the bank from the customer has now been applied to the receipt. So what will happen, the end result is the customer balance will show as 0. Okay, so unless you do that, the customer balance will not show as 0, it will still be showing as outstanding. So once that happens, you can post your receipts and generate the accounting and transfer that to general ledger module via subledger accounting module, wherein in general ledger module is the one wherein your entire ledger is maintained in terms of accounting and maintenance of your ledger and posting those ledger entries and the other accounting related process flows. So that's in a nutshell the receivable process flow at a very high level, end to end. So as we go along in the module, I'm gonna go in each of this, and we will not only set up, but we'll also go through each of the transactional process flow behind this. Now before I end, I want to actually take you through a couple of other functionalities. So let's go through a couple of forms quickly to get a feel of what's there in receivables module. So what I've just shown you was two workbenches. Okay, one was the transactional workbench I shown you. The second workbench is certainly the collections workbench, which we have quickly seen. The third workbench, or I should have actually shown you right here itself, wherein the receipts part comes into picture. So the third workbench is what you call as the receipt workbench. So as you see, you go to receipts and then you simply go to receipts again. That is also a third, called as a third workbench. So you basically process your receipts over here. Okay, likewise you can call other workbenches. For example, you can call one workbench as bills receivable workbench. That is like a fourth workbench. Okay, and in that this workbench is basically used by or can be potentially used as a part of collection process. Okay, so if you go here, you can define your bills receivables over here. So we'll go into all that a little bit later, so hold on for a minute. So what my plan was to first take you through a couple of other functions over here. So we'll start with the customers. So basically, as a part of your receivable process flow, which is also called as credit to cash process flow, which is a subset of order to cash lifecycle, you've got customers, salesperson, invoices, payments, and receipts. Okay, so that's what all of these constitute your receivables. So if I go back to this process flow, this whole thing is called as order to cash process flow, but the part of receivables starts from here, and this part you can also call as credit to cash process flow. And as a part of this process flow, you can also incorporate or basically leverage other Oracle modules such as Oracle Credit Management, or you can also leverage other contracts module, but those are optional. Okay, but the credit to cash process flow is this in a summary. Okay, so let's go ahead now. As a part of credit to cash process flow, what you do, first of all, to manage or to create a transaction, obviously you need to have a customer, right? So you've got to define your customer, but even before you define a customer, you've got to have a profile for the customer. So which basically indicates that how much how much the customer amount he can buy it for, what's his credit rating, okay, and so on. So that customer profile, you basically define it over here. So you basically go to, let's see where, customers, and then you go to profile classes, and that's where I believe you define. Let me just quickly check. Yeah, that's the place. All right, so that's where you go and you define your customer profile classes. Okay, and that's where you define the profile class amount. So as you could see, there are a number of things out here like credit limit or order credit limit or receipt amount or statement amount. All that I'm going to cover it a little bit later, but that's what a customer profile class is made up of. Okay, then once you define your customer profile classes, the next step is you've got to define the customers. So where do you go and define the customers? You basically go and define the customers over here. So do you see that customer create? So that's the form in which you simply hit that create button and start defining the customer. The customer definition process is not that easy. It's a complex process. Basically, customer model is now been incorporated as a part of trading community architecture. So it's got multiple things in that. Every customer is treated like a party. A party is something which can be a customer or a supplier. So in this example, a party is our customer. Okay, so once you define a party, then you define a customer account. Once you define a customer account, then you define the customer bill to address, ship to addresses, the contacts in that. Then you define customer sites, where all the customers are located in. For example, if it's an enterprise customer, you've got one branch in US, one in Australia, one in New Zealand, one is in Singapore, one is in India, one is in China, like that. Okay, so that's what is the concept. I will go into that a little bit later as we go along in the course to explain you the complete trading community architecture, plus how we go about defining the customer model in Oracle Receivables. Now, as a part of that, in release 12i, Oracle has also come up with what you called as data quality management. Hold on, let me just go back here, which is also called as DQM, which actually helps you to avoid duplicates and helps you to establish a customer relationship and merging the customer. It's like a part of trading community architecture. Again, we'll see that a little later. Oracle has also come up with something called as a customer hub, which is just like supplier hub, wherein you can collate all the customers from your external systems to avoid duplications, and you can establish a relationship and maintain a collateral of customers at one place. Anyway, so all that was about customers. So the first step in receivable process is to define your customer profiles, then customers, and then you got to define other roles which you can basically leverage Oracle Credit Management module to define further credit roles there. Okay, then you have to define salesperson. So salesperson is the one, say, if you are implementing order to cash, then if someone has sold some orders to the customers, as a part of that they will have sales commission have to be paid to them. So you define salesperson, and then while you're defining salesperson, you also associate the percentage of commission that would be paid to them. So this is mostly a part of not only order to cash, but here a little bit of a CRM comes into picture, wherein sales and marketing, iStore, these processes are also involved. But on a shorter note, I don't want to go into that area because things will become a little bit complex and you will not be able to digest so much of information. So basically you can define salespeople, in order management associate their commissions, and then while you are booking the order, you can actually associate a salesperson in the order, and that commission or that sales credit can be paid as a part of the invoice as well. Then as I just said, invoices. So once the order management process is complete, you basically go about creating the invoice for goods or services, and at the same time you can associate charges for the invoice charges, like for example freight charges or any other miscellaneous charges that's been incurred as a part of sales process. And then you can automatically generate the tax amount as a part of your invoice entry. Okay, so this tax amount, if you have implemented Oracle e-business tax module, then the tax amount will get generated automatically by the tax engine and will be applied to the invoice. So if you want to explore more about the taxation part, then feel free to take my course in Oracle e-business tax, wherein I have explained right from fundamental concepts as to how you go about implementing tax or enterprise taxes in Oracle e-business suite using e-business tax module. All right, so having said that, once you have defined these invoices, and as I said, as a part of the receivable process flow, you can also receive deposits and prepayments from the customers. So as you see over here, if you want to define a deposit or prepayment, you've got to select that appropriate classes over here. So as you see, deposit over here, so you basically take that class and define that deposit, and then while you're creating the invoice, you can basically apply that deposit or prepayment to that invoice, so as to balance it off. All right, so that you can do it as a part of receivable process flows, and you can as well define adjustments and credit memos as a part of your receivable process flow. But remember to use appropriate classes over there. So as you see over here, you've got a credit memo, debit memo, and adjustment are something which you can define it as a part of the payment process flows. So the next thing that comes up is recognizing the revenue and generating the accounting. So basically, once you have completed your invoices or transactions, you can simply go ahead and recognize the revenue by running the program for generating the revenue. You can also generate the accounting online. So out here in the actions window, if you go, you can basically generate the accounting. Hold on, yeah, tools, it's out here, tools, and then you've got create accounting. That's the one you've got to use for generating the accounting online, and then you can transfer that accounting immediately to general ledger while applying the subledger accounting rules. So that basically completes the invoicing process. And then as a part of collections, payment, and receipt process flow, you can define collectors, generate statements and dunning letters to follow up with the customers. You can not only define customers but collectors, but also you can have kind of a limit associated with them. So there is a setup associated with your collections over here. So if you go here, collections, and as you see, you can define your collectors over here, say as an example. Okay, and then use these collectors to follow up with dunning letters and statements. Now at this point of time, you can implement Oracle Advanced Collections module, which has got much more functionalities in terms of collections, but receivables currently have got limited functionality. Then assuming that the customer has paid the invoice, then you can generate the receipts and apply to invoices. So that part, as I have explained you previously, was through the receipts workbench. You simply go to receipts and receipts here, and that's where you basically select the transaction number, the second field over here, and then apply to the customer invoice. A couple of interesting things over here are that the collectors have the ability to view up-to-date customer accounts online, as I have shown you previously a little while ago. And last but not the least, you've got a way to import the invoices and receipts into Oracle Receivables from external systems from different sources. Oracle has basically provided standard interface program using which you can basically suck the data into Oracle through those interface program. So they not only get the data into temporary tables, but also these interfaces are responsible for validating the data to make sure that you can import them into production tables in Oracle Receivables. So what are those interfaces? Those interfaces, the one I've described you previously was auto invoice interface program for importing invoices from external systems. And the second one is called as auto logbox. It's basically used for importing the receipts from external systems. So where do you find those programs? How do you run them in Oracle applications? If you go back to Oracle applications here, so there are here on the receivables responsibility, you can see something called as interfaces. So if you simply expand them, one of them is auto invoice interface and the second one is lockbox interface. And perhaps I should have told you this one as well, that you can as well import your customers or definition of customers from external systems. So now that's a procedure like auto invoice program or customer interface program or lockbox interface program is something that we will be discussing later down the line in the course. But as of the moment, I think these are majorly the features that receivables have. And last but not the least is you can basically generate the revenue within receivables as soon as you realize the invoices, and then you can generate accounting for them for separately for invoices and separately for the receipts after the receipts have been posted. And you can basically post the accounting transactions to general ledger, and finally in the ledger itself you can further post it as a part of your period closing process.